Hello, Melissa. You're muted. There you go. Welcome to Synergy. I've just decided that's going to be the name of the show on the fly. I didn't like recovery talk very much, and so we went with Synergy. Okay, I'm going to ask you to unmute Melissa. We have Melissa Drake on the show remotely live from Fullerton, California. Welcome, Melissa.
Welcome. I'm so grateful to be here. Thank you. Love the name of the video cast. That's awesome.
We're going to talk about her amazing, amazing book. This is, I like to read new authors and up and coming authors, and I got to say, most of the time when I'm reading up and coming authors that have self-published and so forth, I'm not usually amazed with their work. Sometimes it's intriguing. I've read quite a few, but I like to be the first when I see someone, especially someone that is bright and shiny and puts out a book. I want to check it out, and I did, and I found myself reading this book going, yes, yup, that'll work. That would make me feel valued. That would be an amazing way to do things. And last time I think I read a book that I was doing all those yeses and yups was Michael Cartwright's book, Believable Hope. And he was the chairman of the board of American Addiction Centers. And I'm going through his book and I'm going, oh yeah, this will work. And mainly because I had done the things in the book and they were empirically provable to me. And so I knew they did work. And so I'm always happy, and you look lovely. And please tell us a little bit about yourself and about your background. I was thinking of getting a chest timer so that I don't hog too much of the conversation. Been told sometimes I do that. It's like hit the chest timer and I can figure out that I'm not monopolizing things. So please tell us a little bit about yourself and your background, Melissa.
Well, thank you, first of all, for having me. I appreciate just the serendipity of the way that we met through a Facebook group, which is how I've met most of my friends and soul family. So I'm super grateful that happened for us. In terms of my background, it's kind of all over the place, right? I spent 25 years in the insurance industry, and over that time went through a lot of, I call them life's tough transitions. So things like divorce and single parenthood and managing as part of the sandwich generation. So taking care of my parents and being a single parent at the same time, chronic illness, and ultimately a job loss after 25 years in the industry. And when that happened, I was honestly looking for another, I knew I needed to look for another job, but I just hadn't taken that proactive step yet. And so the universe stepped in and said, okay, it's time. And I lost my job, and I was shocked, but not really surprised, and a little grateful at the same time. And I decided then that I wanted to do something different with my life. And back then, I remember someone asking me, what do you want to do? And I was trying to volunteer for hospice, but I was sick with these two chronic conditions, and hadn't been able to volunteer. And I had dealt with a lot of mental health issues over the years. And I'm like, I really just want to write, and I want to help in the stigma of mental health. And I ended up joining a coaching organization in Los Angeles, and I was living in Des Moines, Iowa at the time. And through a few visits to California, I decided this is the place I wanted to live. I like the way I feel when I'm here. It's a completely different vibe, a completely different environment, people, experience, all of that. Not to mention the sunshine. Although it's cold today, it's 50, and I'm just like, oh, it's freezing.
I'm in New England, so I don't feel too bad for you, man.
I bet not. Well, to me now, anything under 70 is cold. So 50 is like, whoa. Anyway, so at that point, I had owned a home for almost 20 years. I sold it, moved across the country with only the items that would fit in my SUV, and just decided to create a new life. And that's what I've been doing. And writing is obviously a big part of that.
Well, I mean, yeah, I read in the book. I mean, that must have been a bit scary. I mean, you had the security of the corporate job, and it's amazing because I've heard a lot of stories like this with entrepreneurs and with people that have set out on a journey of wellness, that they really had to let go of so many things that were maybe not holding them back, but providing security and providing some comfort. And so many people, I think, live in the means now of work, entertainment, sleep, wash, rinse, repeat cycle. And their standard of living goes up to whatever their job is. So they can't take something that would be less money, that might be more enjoyable, and so forth. So, I mean, kudos for that. And I've seen, there's usually a lot of bumps in the road when you're doing that. I mean, so, was it bumpy and scary?
It still is bumpy and scary. Absolutely. Like, I never, ever considered going back to the corporate world until 2020. And I was like, oh, how nice it would be to have the support of an employer and the benefits and all of those things that I was accustomed to. And that's a big part of entrepreneurship. It's not a straight line all the way to the top, right? It's like this, and sometimes all the way down. And then, the period during which I wrote the book was the most challenging time of my life. And I wouldn't say it's over. Like, it's never over. Like, that's one of the things I talked about a lot in my first book, right? We don't ever arrive. We don't ever get there. We don't get to the final destination. And as much as we can create success, it's not guaranteed. And it's a process. We go, and then we fuck up, and then we learn how not to fuck up, or how to fuck up better. And it's part of it. It's part of the process. But I've definitely not arrived. Like, I wrote an amazing book, but to say my life is in order and beautiful, that's not the truth.
I think that along the way, though, you kind of learn to surf those waves.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I remember when I was in active addiction, the things that I go through on a daily basis now, that I handle in 5 minutes or an hour, or just get through, might have taken me 5 or 10 years to get through.
Correct.
While I was living the way I was living. So now it's not, I tell people that everything is perfect now. It's just that it's a lot easier. It's a lot easier because I'm used to those things, and I have faith that I'll get through them. And I've gone through things in the past, so this is an insurmountable, whatever obstacle is in my way now. And it usually doesn't bum me out for very long. It's like, oh well, what did I learn from that situation?
Yes, exactly. And that's the most important response we can have, is what is the lesson here, and how do I prevent this going forward?
Well, I think there's some situations that I started looking into the eightfold noble path of Buddhism along my journey, and one of the things I noticed in there, well, I agreed with all of them. I was like, oh wow, I'm kind of doing this stuff. Maybe that's why life is getting a little bit easier and a little bit better. But one of the practice, right mindfulness and right meditation and so forth. And I think there's a science behind a lot of spirituality that people don't look at, like, oh, the spiritual mumbo jumbo and stuff. But those people of certain religions during the last, several thousand years, the ones that were doing it right were usually pretty happy, and they were practicing a few different things. Well, I'm going to try to be grateful for what I have rather than look at what I don't have.
Right.
I'm going to try to help my fellow man in some other way. I'm going to think a little bit less of myself, and try to help other people and do what I can. And so, if I can find gratitude in a crap situation, when my mother has cancer, I'm not gonna be grateful for cancer. Oh, thank you, God, for the cancer. But I'm grateful I'm present today. I'm grateful that I can make her special meals and stuff and try to do things. So if I can focus on the part that I actually can do something about, and physically take some steps to try to improve somebody's condition while they're going through it, or in any of those circumstances, I'm generally happier.
Yeah.
And does gratitude play a big part in success for you?
Absolutely. I think that was one of the most important things I did when I started my recovery journey. I spent most of my life severely depressed, mentally ill, and on a crap ton of medications, very numb, all of that. There was a period of 7 years where I literally went to work and came home and went to bed. I spent all of my time in bed. And the one thing I remember, gosh, this was probably 10 years ago, was reading an article or something, and it encouraged people to write a list of 100 things you're grateful for. And I was like, oh, that's a lot. Like, how could I possibly come up with 100 things? And I did it, and it wasn't that hard. And then I just continued to do that. And even today, I have a gratitude jar in my kitchen that I write myself little notes. Um, but it really all begins with your thoughts. Like, the situation can be exactly the same, and it can be really dire, and you can have a positive attitude or not. And it's really our choice. Like, when I realized that the thoughts I was using were ones I was choosing, then I became much more careful with what I thought, with what I said, with the people I surrounded myself with. I turned off the TV. I literally didn't watch TV for 5 years. And then, with the pandemic, I will watch Netflix or Hulu or something, but I don't have cable or anything like that. It's been over a decade since I watched the news. But I just became really careful about what I put in my mind. And now my work is being more careful about what I put into my body.
Well, there's a saying especially in the computer industry, garbage in, garbage out.
Yes, yes.
The brain is similar to a computer. If I'm putting garbage in there on a regular basis, I used to hear things like, "Well, you got to change your thoughts. You got to try to be happy." And I was like, "What? What do you mean?" I was like, "No." And my wife, she was always, she wasn't always bright and shiny. While she was trying to get me to stop using drugs and stuff, she was the enemy at that point for a while. And but she would occasionally give me this pseudoscience. She'd be like, "Well, I heard if you smile more, you'll be happier. Why don't you try singing a song while you do that?" And I would just look down my nose, and I'd be like, "No, this needs a real solution, preferably a chemical solution that
Oh,
will
yes.
fit a pill,
Yes.
and I can pop it, and I will be happy, and we'll solve this." And I've had to admit since then, well, she was a lot more right on those things than I ever thought. And so I do arrive at work usually singing whatever song was on my playlist and have a smile on my face. But if I looked at I had 10 years of severe depression at the end of my addiction, where I just sat in a chair. The last year of it, I was neglecting my hygiene. I was just, I was not brushing my teeth regularly. I was not bathing regularly. And, I'm not having sex with anyone. So why do I get to smell good? There's no need for that. And,
Right.
I had to relearn all that. But, if I looked at my thoughts during that process, I think we were made in such a way that if we're living, a terrible lifestyle, we're probably depressed. It's
Yeah.
probably a function of our biology to say, "Hey, you might need to change some things up here. Maybe look at a little exercise. Maybe look at your diet and see how that's going. How's your sex life?" And start looking at everything. And I realized, well, Well, you're depressed. What are you thinking? Oh, my marriage sucks. I'm not accomplishing anything. My life is horrible. My kids don't want to talk to me. Well, those are depressing thoughts.
Yes.
Those are depressing thoughts. You're not going to be very happy thinking those thoughts.
Correct.
And it was a big process. And I got a lot into that with a lot of writing, a lot of journaling, and I started writing
Writing is
a lot.
huge. Yeah.
And I found that super cathartic. And obviously, you're a writer, so we're weaving our consciousness into words there, and I think that's magic. I wanted to touch on something that well, let's say eccentric rather than the stigma of crazy. But I found at both levels, that when I was down in addiction, I was like a lot of smart people down there, at the bottom of the scale, doing genius things to get drugs,
Mhm.
and to continue their lifestyle. So I found a lot of eccentricity at the bottom. But now that I'm starting to branch out, and I'm not hanging in trap houses and stuff like that. I
Mhm.
started meeting some people that are at the other end of the spectrum, and finding them just as eccentric as a lot of the
Go
people.
ahead and use the word you want to use. It's fine.
Crazy. Yeah,
Yes.
there's a little
Yes.
bit of crazy in the people that are doing very well. I
Yes.
mean, I have an astrologer on retainer. I mean, and according to quantum physics, that's not so wild. I mean, there is entanglement and everything affects everything. So why not astrology? She told me I
Yes.
should be watching for enemies lurking in the side, trying to bring me down, and that was a bummer. But I'll get through it. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about that a little bit, the stigma and the things you've seen, because you've seen a lot of people at this level now.
Yeah, so the word crazy, I've been through like kind of a roller coaster with that. First, I want to start with something my son and I are like intimately connected and close. And when he was about 5 years old, he said, "If everyone's crazy, no one is." And I just thought that was one of the most brilliant things I'd ever heard. Well, so I spent my whole life being medicated and, told that I was mentally ill and that I had all of these illnesses and problems. And so crazy was a term that I wore quite affectionately, like kind of like, this is who I am. And it wasn't until I joined Facebook that I really started like connecting with people who were like me. And what I learned is that I wasn't really mentally ill. I wasn't really depressed. I was an empath, which I didn't know anything about before I joined Facebook. And I was a highly sensitive person. So, what looked crazy or what looked like mental illness to other people was me suppressing and repressing who I am. When I am not who I am, I'm miserable. And I think that's true for everyone. And so when I realized that, then I banished the word crazy from my vocabulary. Like, I don't ever want to hear that word again. I don't own crazy. Like, it was very much like, no, that's not a word for me. When I wrote my first book, the last chapter, I owned crazy in a powerful way. I'm like, the people who change the world are crazy. The people who can't hear the music think the people dancing are crazy. So crazy is the dance within waiting to be born. Only most of us don't have the courage to actually birth that dance. So the Orgasmic Entrepreneur is my dance with crazy. And it literally is my dance. Like, you hear, you see, you feel all of the craziness that happened for me in the last couple of years. And I came out the other side. I haven't exactly gotten to the freedom and excitement side of it yet. But it is crazy. It is like I referred to it in the book. It's very much the Jerry Maguire, saying the things we think and do not say. Most people won't say the things that I said in this book.
Yeah,
And there are a lot of people who won't understand the things that I said in this book. So when I saw your review, I was like, he gets it. Like, you got it on a visceral level. And I just like, that's so exciting to me.
that's one of the most exciting things in my life now. I meditate on a daily basis, and one of the meditations I do is is trying to level up your gratitude and happiness to do some manifestation and so forth. And then during this, the guy's got a very he's got a his voice is very soothing to me. You're going through the hall of appreciation. Now you come to three doors, and the three doors that you have to choose from to level up your emotions and gratitude and so forth are a door of personal connections and friendships you've made along the way. Then there's a door of material possessions and objects you possess, and then there's a third door of your health and how you feel. And you can choose one. I've never chose any door except the personal connections.
Wow.
Every single time I do this meditation, which is almost nightly, I always go for the people in my life that I've connected with along the way. And I've had a lot of lessons on that path. And what you were saying is most people won't get this. But I'm me. So I just put it out there, and I just and then when it's not reacted to right or whatnot, I'm like, well, I don't understand that. I get a new lesson of, well, that person's is living in fear. They don't know how to express themselves. So when I'm open and whatnot, they are afraid of that, or they react to that in whatever way they react to it. And during, I've learned some valuable lessons along the way. I learned that, within certain structures, I have to be a diluted version of Paul. I can't be 100% Paul at work because sometimes some of the things that come out of my mouth are a little bit outlandish, and sometimes I have to not dilate the truth, but I have to put the truth out there, particularly in a manner that it's kind of walking on eggshells, or I'm selling it to a person at their level. And one of the things I love about you and my wife is I don't have to dilute myself very much. I don't have to, no, I don't dilute myself at all with my wife. And perhaps there's some areas where I could, and she's mentioned that. She's like, you could sell that to me a little bit. You're good at putting words out there, Paul. You could put that in a much kinder, gentler manner than, yeah, that makes your ass look really fat. I don't care. Go ahead and wear it. I'm fine with that. I like the way it looks. So, but if you want to, I can tell her the unfettered truth.
Yeah.
I can just, bleh, there you go.
Mhm.
You got, how does that look? It's all right. I mean, if you're too lazy to want to change the clothes, it's fine. I'll be fine with it. I'll go out in a tracksuit and sweatpants. But that's one of the things that I like. Now, you talked about a little bit of the empath piece, and I think there's a couple different kinds. And I've seen some memes on Facebook about like the empowered empath versus the unaware empath, where a lot of people that are highly sensitive are in bad relationships, or stifling themselves with chemicals, or any of the types of situational addictions that people do. And that's why I want this show not just to be on chemical addictions, but on overall wellness. Because I think that everyone to a point is going through the same sort of battle, whether the addiction is I'm overspending, I'm having sex I'd rather not have, I'm taking drugs, I'm drinking, I'm gambling, so I'm overeating. Any of those things are they're all birds of a feather. And
Yep.
I get some ideas of where I think that empath piece comes from. I'd like to hear yours.
What do you mean where the empath piece comes from?
Well, do you think you were just born with it? Do you think it's completely
Oh,
metaphysical? Do you think that it evolved from the childhood you live, a piece of all of that, or?
I think it's a piece of all of that, but I also think it's a piece of evolution, because if you look at our children, they're different. Our children have different skills and abilities than, like, they're born with different skills and abilities than what we're born with. And I think that as a species, as a population, we are evolving. When you look at the rates of autism and when you look at the rates of ADHD, again, our society wants to medicate and fix, when in reality those are gifts. Like I was always told my sensitive, oh, don't be so sensitive, and why you have to be so dramatic, and like, shut it down, medicate it, put it in a box, all of those things, when in reality, when I am who I am, the highly, highly sensitive person, that's when I can really connect. That's when I can tell you how to help and how to fix a situation. And like, I think we need to nurture those things instead of push them down.
Absolutely, absolutely. I agree completely. I think that a lot of times you say, if you say in a regular conversation, empath to somebody who's on the very straight and narrow, they'll kind of look at you like, yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And but I learned to read micro expressions very quickly. Aside from, I learned to read body language very quickly. Aside from one step from the car to the house, if the person's drunk and I should go hide in the closet, because they're probably going to be acting a little crazy and scary and so forth. You get to hear tonal variations in people's voices, and I don't know. I think that all of those things become so registered within you that the overall culmination of all of those, a concatenation of them coming together, becomes just a vibe. I should go hide here because that guy's doing something psycho with his eyes and he's about to hit people. And so I'm going to get out of Dodge there because I don't enjoy getting punched in the face very much. It doesn't feel good. I'm not a tough guy. I don't want to get in the ring. And, I'll go hide over here and let the nurses and treatment assistants in the facility deal with that guy,
Right.
And, so a lot of times, I'll get asked, well, why do you think that there's about to be chaos on, like, I work in mental health, I work in a treatment center, and a lot of times I'll tell, there's going to be a code yellow soon. A code yellow where I am is aggression and violence, and then you start reading the room and everything else and see that people are breaking down into little factions and cliques, and it's getting high school-y in there and stuff like that, and I'll be like, there's going to be something going on, so you should be prepared for that. How do you know? And now I don't go through the whole explanation because that just took 5 minutes. I just go through, I got a vibe, so take it or leave it for what it is. And I would say 99% of the time my vibes come true and they're correct. And then it has to leave some people scratching their heads, or how does Paul come into this knowledge, just stuff. But I think a lot of that was suppressed for me as a child. You have intuition.
Yep, same.
Yeah, I was like, oh no, the people in school like you. No, they really don't. No, they no, they really don't. They don't enjoy the big hugs I'm getting. I remember one day, I'm monopolizing again. I remember one day coming home, and I like to hug people. I'm a hugger, and I started to hug some of the guys in school. And I came home and I had to ask my uncle. I was like, "What's a homo?" And he lied to me. He goes, "Oh, they're calling you a Homo sapien. That's a human being," I was not buying that for a minute, even at like 7 years old. I'm like, I don't know. I don't think they were complimenting me there. They were not liking.
Yeah, you can feel it. Like, and that's what's so irritating is when people don't tell you the truth, then it makes you question, because you have that feeling, you have that knowing that how they're responding to me isn't positive. And then someone you trust tells you, no, that's not true. So then who do you stop trusting?
It's like being gaslit.
Yes.
Like
you go against your own tuition because this other person is telling you something that isn't true.
And that's going right along with the vibe of you having to be you, for whatever reason that is. I mean, I think that I have a soul. I think it was made a particular way. Some Freud or Jung would probably talk about, well, your value system was this, and that's what you were raised with. So now deviating from that is going to make you uncomfortable. But I
Mhm.
think I think there's something more to that. I think there is a laws and powers, and here we go. Now, I saw a lot of the law of attraction, The Secret, that type of things. And I see that all the time in successful people. Psychology will call that creative visualization. I mean, a lot of CEOs, a lot of athletes are now starting to, okay, I'm going to meditate what my best game will be. And I'm going to sit there and be quiet for a little while. I'm going to imagine myself winning. I'm going to imagine myself there. And it's been, there's been documentation and research on it that shows the people who do that usually will do better. So there is empirical evidence. What did you read on that? How did you incorporate that into what you do?
Well, it started with The Secret. Many years ago when it first came out, I had a psychic counselor that I saw on a regular basis, and she told me about it. And so I watched it back then, and then I've listened to Abraham Hicks for years. I've seen her in person. I've seen Esther 3 times in person, and I listened to Brian Scott of the Reality Revolution. I listened to Cryon, Lee Carroll. I listened to I don't want to say all of it. I listened to a lot of others. And one thing that's interesting to me is that they all have the same thread. They all have the same information. And so I know they're getting it from somewhere, right? I know they're all getting it from the same source. And that's what's just so fascinating to me. But it's like writing too. Like we all have the same story. I work with authors, and I was just telling an author this morning that as different as we are as people, the stories, like they all have different parts and pieces, but they're all the same. They're all related to trauma of some kind. They're all the hero's journey. They're all people trying to be better people.
Yeah, that to me, I stumbled on most of the things that helped me by coincidence.
There are no coincidences.
Einstein said coincidence is God's way of remaining anonymous.
Mm.
You know,
Oh, I like that a lot. That's
yeah,
really good.
I,
Yeah.
I do too. I was a big coincidence guy when I was using drugs, and I was painted into the box of mental illness and so forth. Oh, it's just a coincidence, just a coincidence. It means nothing. But
Mhm.
during this time when I got sober, I went into I was beaten down enough. I didn't even want to be sober. I had been sober in my 20s. I had 8 years of white knuckle sobriety. Just, oh, I can't drink. I can't go to weddings. I can't go anywhere where there's alcohol. I can't go near anybody with drugs. I'll just use. And I didn't change myself one iota. I just thought, well, I'll just do what everybody else does. I will get what I want, and eventually I will find the combination of happiness. If I get the degree, if I get a relationship, if I have children, if
Yeah.
go to the gym and get 6-pack abs and buy an IROC-Z, yeah.
That
So
still cracks me up. IROC was such a great car.
oh yeah, yeah. We had a thing. I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to say it. I don't want to offend any Italians, but there were a lot of Guido in Rhode Island. There's a large Italian American population, and I love Italians. So we're not gonna go into what they made an anagram of the initials on that car, because I don't want to offend any sensitive Italian Americans about that. But that was the car that I wanted most when I was like 16. So
Oh yeah.
after I got sober and stuff, I'm gonna put all these things together. I'm gonna arrange life just the way I want it, and it's gonna be wonderful. And wrong, wrong,
Same. Mhm.
looking for the next thing to make life better, the next degree, the next piece of the puzzle or whatever, and not being happy in the moment was not an equation for success. I was always miserable. And then I eventually got Lyme disease, and doctor forgot all about my addictive past. I had been in several rehabs before I got that stent to sobriety, and he was like, "Well, I'll give you some opiates for that." I didn't go into that blind, I didn't go, "Oh, the
Right.
doctor did it to me." No, I had extreme cognitive dissonance, and I was drawing on a straw of truth, and basing my whole. I had been given a prescription of Vicodin while I had my wisdom teeth out during that period, and I used them correctly. And I stopped using. Well, my wife gave them out to me one at a time, and then she put them
Yeah.
away, and I didn't have control of them. But the doctor offered me that, and I hadn't been doing anything for my recovery. I hadn't changed myself at all, and I went right back into the addiction and stayed there. And some things got a little better just from putting chemicals down. I could hold a job because I'm not taking Mondays and Fridays off,
Mhm.
hungover. I was not getting in trouble with the law because I'm not breaking the law. Go
Mhm.
figure. I could have a relationship because I'm not showing up after the first date drunk off my ass on the lawn declaring my undying love. I love you so much. It was such a wonderful day. And it was probably good for a lot of those ladies. No second date for you, pal. Uh,
Uh-huh.
a lot of that. Back time. I digress a lot. Sorry, but back into the piece about synchronicity and stuff like that. I stumbled on DBT, dialectical behavioral therapy, through just
Mhm.
mere prayer. It was like basics of DBT are writing down our thoughts. And I was going to AA, and I started to pray because that's what they did there. It was like, okay, you want me to ask Santa in the sky for favors now? I don't think this is going to work, but it was working for them. And so I had all the smart arguments. I read a lot of treatise on atheism and stuff, and I could give you the big words and stuff like that. And my sponsor was a humble guy, and he basically said, "What's it going to hurt you to do this?" And I had no smart aleck answer for that. It's not going to hurt me at all. It hurt my pride a little to get on my knees and ask some other source for help in this life. But through that, I kind of stumbled onto. I started writing, and I started putting it out on different groups on social media. I started connecting with a lot of people, and I started seeing my thinking process in the writing. And then the next piece that came in was the meditation. I would
Yeah.
start meditating on a regular basis, and I think about those things that I had written about. A lot of people think, "Oh, meditation is just being Zen," and no, I would think during the
Mhm.
meditation, and I would analyze, and I would invite my higher power in there with me, and say, "Keep me honest, please." And so when I'd have something like, I called myself an idiot today. Well, is that true? Well, you made a mistake in something you're not experienced with. Maybe you're just a human being, and maybe you should just forgive
Mhm.
yourself, try not to repeat it, and move on. And
Right.
doing that in that theta state of meditation, it rewrote it very quickly. And I was like amazed. And here where you go, and we'll get back over to you, Melissa, because yeah, I really do need the guest thing, but that's how I started doing DBT and a lot of catharsis with the 12 steps and stuff like that. You spoke in your book about going through the NLP. I know a little bit about that, but not very much. So I'm going to let you enlighten me on that, please.
Sure. So NLP stands for Neuro Linguistic Program. So neuro is the mind, linguistic is the language, and programming are our regular behaviors. And essentially, it's a process for alignment, because what you think, what you say, and what you do are congruent, that's alignment, right? So I have this process for the last several years where I choose a word for the year, and like that is my theme of the year. And my word for 2020 was alignment. And what I learned quite uncomfortably, actually, about the word that we choose is that I always go back to my favorite quote from the movie Evan Almighty, and it's God saying to Evan, if you ask God for patience or you ask God for love, you get opportunities to be patient, you get opportunities to love, and it's not like it's the process of refinement, right? So I got opportunity after opportunity to come into alignment, which was essentially tragedy after tragedy after tragedy. And so I did, first off, my word for next year is play. Like I'm so into opportunities to play. But so I want to say September, we'd been through several months of the pandemic, and I got a message at 10 p.m. on a Friday night with this NLP trainer saying, hey, we have this free thing coming up for the next 3 days. It's from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. Will you join us? At 10 p.m. the next day. And I'm like, are you, like, the first thing that goes through my head is, are you fucking kidding me? And then the next thing that goes through my head is, if I don't do this, what will I be doing? And the answer is what I had been doing for the last 6 months, which is basically just crying and fretting and worrying and stressing and all of those things. And so I'm like, okay, this is an opportunity, literally an opportunity for alignment. So I did this free 3-day class, and it was really powerful and amazing and great. And then he comes back a few days later trying to sell me this very expensive program that I couldn't afford. Like there was just no possible way that I could afford it. And he offered me payment plans and all of that. And he's really good at his craft, right? And part of that craft is getting people to buy into your program. And so I signed up for it. And it was one of the most challenging things I'd ever done. It was at least 12 weeks. I want to say it was more like 14 to 16 weeks of twice a week classes, 4 hours at a time. And it was called Breakthrough Mastery, and it literally is breakthrough. And the process are designed to rewire your experience. And there were several processes that really, I mean, all the processes are good, but 2 of them really, really hit home for me. One is removal of negative emotion. And so you start with things like anger and fear and sadness, and just removing that emotion from your experience. And when you do that, it's interesting because you think about the thing that made you angry. And when that thing comes up again, you can look at it and you don't have, like for me, it's a bodily reaction. Like my body instantly I just feel instantly inflamed. After those emotions are removed, I can look at that situation that once made me angry and I have no charge there whatsoever. It's just literally the charge is gone. And I was like, this shit works. Like, this is powerful. But the negative emotions that really made a difference for me were guilt and shame, which had literally been ruling my life. And I had a palpable response in my body, in my being, when those 2 emotions were removed from my experience. So that was the first, like, whoa, this is super powerful. And then the next one was parts integration. So parts integration are, part of me wants to be successful and the other part of me wants to lay on the couch, or part of me wants to be healthy and part of me wants to eat bonbons all day. Like we have these conflicts within ourselves that prevents us from being in alignment because we're fighting with ourselves, right? Like we're literally fighting with ourselves. And, I have a bunch of those conflicts, but the one that I was dealing with at the time is part of me knows I'm here for a reason, and part of me doesn't feel worthy to exist. And I was deeply, deeply suicidal at the time. And I had been through bouts of suicidal ideation from the age of, I would say probably 12 on up. and had tried to commit suicide before. And so like the 2020 was literally a moment to moment exercise in staying alive. And when they did that parts integration, I had alignment on that particular item in my life. And I was like, okay, now I can move forward. So it was just a really, really positive, the whole class in itself was really positive, but I also met some really amazing people in the class. My best friend Myra, I met in the class as well. She's the one who introduced me to plant medicine, which is a whole nother part of my journey, which I didn't talk about a lot in the book, but there's there's much more to come on that. And NLP is just a really fantastic tool. I will say though, that before I took the class, it was right around the election. And one of my friends said to me, it's like people are just hypnotized. And when I took NLP, I'm like, oh, I understand why. Because they literally are. Like, we can use words in a way that gets people to do things and gets people to agree to things. And I was like, okay, now I get it. Like, now I understand, like, there is so much, there's so much we can do with our words.
Oh, language is definitely amazing. I see a lot of similarities with your description of NLP and with dialectical behavioral therapy. I was able to during that process step back from trauma, and during meditation, it's usually using mindfulness to step away from the trauma, so I'm not feeling the feelings of the trauma, and
Yeah.
I can just rationally evaluate it and look at it. And I think meditation adds another component, because I kind of go and I can revisit childhood. I can look at things that, because when you have trauma and from childhood, you start developing some pretty wacky ideas. Or maybe I was just a unlovable person. I wasn't,
Yep.
And I had all those, but in revisiting, I could look at, well, no, they were just adults. They were just busy with their own lives. They just had their own selfishness. They just had this and that. It wasn't, they didn't have bad
Intentions.
yeah, they didn't have trying to search for a word that I'm losing, but they didn't have bad intent. They didn't bring a child here. We're gonna send this.
Right. Of course.
What can we do to this? No. So it made them just more human and easier to forgive for what they had done, and to move on from that, and to look and say, oh, well, I would have loved me. I was just, as a kid, and kids are just little narcissists, basically. Sometimes, like with your son, they come out, with some, pretty precocious things, but they are basically, if you let a kid just decide what they're going to do, well, I'm going to eat chocolate all day long, and and then I'm not going to go to school, or I'm going to bite people when I feel like it, because that was one of my things. You had to teach me that pretty quick. People don't like to get bitten, all, so. But the suicide piece, I think my first attempt at suicide, I think I was in fourth grade or fifth grade, and I was like 10 or 11 years old. And I had a teacher that would not let me go to the restroom, and I urinated in my pants. And I was so mortified, and I was so embarrassed. I went to the nurse's office, and I was pretty precocious. I had a pretty good brain, and I was told that in thermometers was mercury, and that was poison that would kill you. Well, I broke open thermometers and tried to suck out the mercury. Well, there's not mercury in those kind of thermometers, so needless to say, I just kind of cowered in the nurse's office with nobody there. I somehow was unsupervised for a while and tried to dry myself off the best I could. But yeah, I got a lot of experience with that. And a lot of people, when someone starts talking in that fatalistic manner, life isn't worth living and people would be better off without me. I, it will say, oh, don't think that. It's sort of akin to when someone's depressed saying, snap out of it,
Yeah.
that doesn't work. And if someone is talking about that now, I do not let that pass. I do not, even if it's, sometimes we got dark humor and do it in a jokey manner and stuff, but I usually get to the seriousness of that because, my plan when I got sober was if this, I had another earnest suicide attempt before I got sober. I looked up the LD50 on my pills. I doubled the dose. I took it with alcohol. I took it slowly so I wouldn't vomit it up and live. And I slept for 2 days. Well, I didn't sleep. I probably was comatose for 2 days and woke up with sore organs and a failure at my latest suicide attempt, which, I thank God for now. But I don't think I really wanted to die. I just wanted the pain to stop.
Right.
And I was going through life hurting people and hurting the people who cared about me. And even though I knew all the psychology behind what suicide leaves in its wake for the family and so forth, I convinced myself somehow that they would still be better off without me. Now, I wouldn't tell a friend that, because if you ask me what I would tell a friend who felt identical to me, I would tell them, hang on, I need them. Try something again, get a different doctor, try a different medication, do some group therapy. I would have an endless amount of things to tell someone I care about or of reasons why not to do that. But I could not be at that point, I could not be a friend to myself. I couldn't treat myself the way I would treat others. And, that was kind of an epiphany when I started to realize, hey, why don't you treat yourself the way you would treat other people and
Yeah.
your inherent value and so forth. So, I have, I've had personal experience with someone close to me taking that way out. And I don't take responsibility for, they had problems with alcohol and lifelong depression and so forth. But what I did take and hold myself accountable to that, and it kind of relates biblically, is am I my brother's keeper?
Mm.
Could I have reached out to that person? And it taught me a very valuable lesson that, when I have people in my life that I love, I need to get their numbers. I need to, because, I'm pretty regular with my digestion. So I'm on the toilet a couple times a day and I can zap off probably like 10 texts of how are you to people when they cross my mind. And a lot of that synchronicity, I think, happens for a reason. Oh, this person crossed. And I text them and I was like, I was just thinking about you. Oh, okay. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
uh, so how do you, I have a different experience of California than you do. My experience, my first time on a plane ever was going to rehab in California.
Oh,
And I saw pretty palm trees from my window while I was terribly, terribly ill detoxing. And then when they did take me out, it just reminded me of this kind of like a strip mall highway with a lot of palm trees. But that's a pretty bad perspective considering I could not stop shaking the
oh,
time I was there. How do you feel in California?
the palm trees are the best. So the first time I came to California was 2012. It was a year after my dad died. I had a really good job. I was reporting to the CEO. I owned my home. I was with my son, and my son was like, I am going to move here when I get older. And I was like, no way in hell would I live in California. Like literally that was exactly what I said. I'm like, no way in hell would I live in California. And the truth was, this was when I was in my, sleeping all the time in bed. California was exhausting. I literally took a nap every single day I was here because I was so exhausted just being here, because there's so much life that happens in California. And I was like, there's no way. And then after I lost my job and I started working with that organization out here, I came out here a couple times for a visit, and I was like, keep in mind, I'm alive now. Like I had started to come out of recovery and depression, and I liked the life here. What I love about California is that no matter what you want to do, no matter how weird it is, what time of day it is, what day of the week, whatever you want to do, you can do it, and that you're never alone. There are people doing all kinds of crazy things here. And, any kind of event, you name it, there's an event that you can go to at any time. Like even back at what brought me out of depression in the first place was dancing, and the clubs in Iowa are only open on the weekends. So if I had a Monday night and I wanted to go dancing, I couldn't. There was no place to even go dancing in Iowa. Well, that's not a problem here. You can literally do whatever you want. And the weather, I had a massive case of seasonal affective disorder. I had a bright light at my desk, the sad light you're supposed to use for a half hour first thing in the morning. I used that motherfucker all day long at work, literally all day long. I had my sad light on. And here I get upset when it rains. It rains a few times a year and I get upset about it. And I'm like, I don't know how I manage the snow, the ice, all of that in Iowa. It's a completely different vibe. A large number of the people here are entrepreneurs. One of the entrepreneur meetups I went to, I was asking this guy, I'm like, what's your favorite thing to do in California? He's like, my friends and I, we're all just entrepreneurs and we talk about how we're going to change the world, how we're going to make it a better place. And I'm like, yes, these are my people. It's really about who you surround yourself with. And people here are very growth oriented. They're very spiritually minded. They know about the chakras. They know about the law of attraction. They're tuned in, tapped in, and turned on. And those are my people.
I used to think Timothy Leary was pretty crazy saying that stuff, and
oh yeah,
but I've been a searcher since I've been writing. I've been a searcher for particular people that I want to bring in and have some synergy with, because I think the whole is greater than the sum of the parts.
yeah.
I learned that through mixing Vicodin and Xanax.
Been there, done that.
Yeah, you got a lot.
And a muscle relaxer, and you're
Yeah,
good.
you throw a muscle relaxer on top. My wife she's not a drug addict, and so sometimes she'll be like, can I take a Xanax after I drink? And I'm, oh yes, definitely. You take one of those after you drink. It will really kick that in for you. You really have a wonderful. I can remember she's not a drug addict. She'll probably be stumbling around the house and kind of comatose. You talked about a little bit about attraction versus promotion, and that's stated a lot within the 12 steps. But I found that there's nothing, a lot of these concepts, there's nothing new under the sun. So if you look at even Christianity or so forth, and I pretty much try to take it from the mouth it came from, and look at what the words of Christ were, and so forth, rather than the distortions that I've seen through through different ministers, different church leaders, different hateful practitioners and stuff like that. And one of the things he has talked about is the fruit of the spirit. And the fruit of the spirit, I don't have them all. I don't keep a lot of extraneous information in my head. That's another Einstein one. If you can look it up, then don't memorize it. But my continence is usually pretty happy. I'm usually I have a lot of forbearance. I'm long suffering, so a person can get in my face and curse me up and down, which happens quite regularly in my job. And I don't take it personally. You mentioned the four. Here we touch on the four agreements too. I don't take it personally. I am not responsible for a person being in rehab, and they're probably there and they've ruined a lot of their lives. They're not at a place where they want to be, and they usually have legal issues, relationship issues, work issues, every other kind of issue. And I am just the object that is telling them, no, you can't do something, or yes, you can, or whatnot. And so I will get a lot of MFs, and Coming from them, I have great forbearance. I can sit there and take that for quite a while. Coming from people who are supposed to be adults that I work with, I'd rather not. I'm like, you got to be the
Mhm.
grown up. But and in that, that piece is, well, if I believe whatever my ethos is true and whatnot, then you can't enlighten me out of the truth. That's an oxymoron. And you can believe whatever you want to believe. There's many paths to the top of the mountain, but if what I believe is true, then I'm going to attract a lot more people with the smile on my face and the forbearance and the joy that I live. And they're going to go, "Wow, Paul, how did you handle that?" I would have snapped. That would have happened, and I can tell them, "Well, I'm a big fan of what Jesus Christ says to do." So instead of going, "You must believe, you must
Right.
believe." So where did you come about the attraction versus promotion?
The experience. Experience. So that chapter was actually written by a healer that I worked with last year. And I met her when I was at my deepest, darkest suicidal point. And she told me, she's like, "Your house is built on sand. Your house is literally built on sand. And anytime a wave comes through, you get wiped out." And I did. That's kind of how life was for me in California. Like, I built these beautiful sand castles, but I was miserable. And then a wave would come in and I'd just get wiped out. And it's really hard to promote yourself and your services when you don't have a firm foundation. It's really hard. Like, it's impossible to attract anything from that place. But when we're in that place, sometimes we just, it's promotion. And promotion, like, I spent 25 years in marketing. Marketing is promotion. And it's not always real. It's kind of like the NLP and the oh, what's the word I'm looking for? The hypnosis aspect of it, right? Marketing is sometimes has those aspects. Like, they go to great lengths to make you think and do what they want. Whereas attraction is, you're simply you're simply in that place, and what you want comes to you. So how do you make yourself that piece, that foundational piece that people and things sworn to? And that was my healing lesson, is allowing the sand to be washed away and then establishing that new foundation. And like we talked about earlier, the foundation is never really complete. It's at a point where it's not wiped out like it used to be from the sand, but the foundation is continuing to be built, and just making yourself, like, they say, you don't attract what you want, you attract what you are. So, if I'm a sand castle that gets wiped out all the time, it's no wonder that I have relationships that get wiped out. So now that I have a better foundation, I'm looking for the other foundations that come with it. And
Yeah.
that's love and business and all of those things. So it's really just like, attraction is about taking the best care of yourself instead of telling everybody how fantastic you are, or telling everybody how fantastic your services are. Attraction is being embodied and having the best service there is.
It's kind of similar to, there's a big difference between confidence and cockiness.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
That when I've done an honest appraisal of what I am good at, where I am lacking, and how I can improve, It puts I can say things that would sound very arrogant and cocky to a lot of people. Sometimes it still does. I can be passive aggressive at times, a little aggressive anyway. But I can say things like, no, I'm good at that. Because I've learned I am, and coming from a place of fear. And during a lot of my life, I'm an artist. I went to school for fine arts, and I wanted my pieces to be the best and praised. And please look at, oh, Paul, you're such a great, wonderful artist, and stuff. But they weren't even the best to me. I would do good enough that I would get the praise and everything else. But now looking at them through honest eyes, I was like, well, I could have really worked that a lot more. I could have done this. I could have done that. I gave up early because I was a little bit lazy, and I knew I would already get praise for it and stuff like that. So good enough. I'm gonna get accolades heaped on me. So that's good enough. But
Promotion is about the accolades. Attraction is doing the work.
yeah. Yeah, and that goes also to I used to tell my kids I don't do drugs, don't drink. Well, I'm drinking and I'm using drugs. I mean, we don't follow hypocrites. We don't follow hypocrites. We follow what they do and what they're aligned to. Oh, why does he do that? Oh, wow, geez, that's why he does this. This feels great. And starting to build my foundation from ground zero. I mean, the end of my addiction was really ground zero. I was spiritually bankrupt. I was physically bankrupt. I was financially bankrupt. I was mentally bankrupt. I was starting from scratch in every single area. And the one thing for rebuilding that really came out of it was a basis of being honest with myself.
Yeah.
Of saying, okay, I have failed in a lot of aspects of my parenthood, of raising my children. I don't have a time machine, so I can't go back to the future or whatever, and re-raise my kids the way I would like to. I can only try to move on the best I can from this position and try not to repeat the behavior that got me there in the first place. And that's a biblical story. Again, this stuff is nothing new under the sun. I mean, it comes back. I mean, you want wisdom, go back 2,000 years, and there's a lot. You can read Epictetus or Marcus Aurelius or Jesus Christ or the Tao Te Ching, or any of these books will give you what they learned. Hey, this will make you feel this will be better for you. And I don't know, I used to think, I say God, AA a lot says higher power and stuff. It's more succinct to say God, less syllables, and it means the same thing. I'm not fooling anybody by saying, well, no, it's not a God, it's a higher power. Like, yeah, that's the same thing. And so going through that, and building from there is actually a nice place to build from, because it instills so much more confidence into my life. And well, I'm an okay musician. Don't want to, I don't even like when people go, oh, this guy is great, this guy is great. When someone would say that to me, I'd be thinking, I know I have greats in my head. Eric Clapton, Jimi Hendrix, Stevie
Yeah.
Ray Vaughan, and then they'd hear Paul on guitar and go, honestly entertaining. We're not gonna worth paying for a $2 cover or whatever, but not no, we're not gonna put him in the great category. Fuck ups and restarts. Failing better. I've learned that I never fail as long as my resolve doesn't go away. And I look at the failure as experience, and what did I learn from that? Let's discuss that a little bit, please, Melissa.
Yeah, so one of the presuppositions of neurolinguistic programming is there's no failure, only feedback. And that phrase about fuck ups came from my son. I had a short situationship that ended quickly, abruptly. And I was really upset about it. And I kept telling my son, I'm like, oh, I fucked up. Like, if I had only done this thing. And like, looking back, I was really in promotion mode at that point. I was trying to like be who I thought he wanted me to be versus being myself. So it's no wonder that the relationship didn't work, right? And my son, he just turned 26, he's like, that's life. Like, you fuck up. Like, you fuck up, and then you learn not to fuck up, or you fuck up better. And it's part of the process. And that resonated with me because life is a process, and it's very rarely a straight line. And I like the idea of the whole reason this book got written in the first place was because I listened to a podcast about a guy that was talking about technology, and he was talking about how important the data is and how you just really have to dig in to find the root cause of the data. And that just like sent off all these alarm bells in my body saying, data geeks must make the best lovers because they're always looking for the sweet spot. And once they find the sweet spot, they don't stop, because what we measure is what we can make changes for. And so the idea of fucking up better is data, right? It's feedback. And so that just kind of fed into the whole theme of the book. And like, our lives are this big experiment. And we get to just try things, and sometimes they're going to work and sometimes they're not. And that's not failure, it's feedback. It's just something we write in our journal or something we record, and then we try something different. And we may not do that thing again, or we may do that thing a little bit differently. And it's just feedback along the way.
I was always mystified by people who behaved admirably. You know, there were people out there that I admired greatly. They could make sacrifices for their family. They could make the hard choice rather than the easy choice, and that was, it was mystifying to me. How do they do that? How do they do that? You know, it's just so much easier to go to the liquor store and get a bottle and drink, or to do what I want to and whatnot. And I learned over the course of you know, this recovery. I learned they practice. They practice.
Yes.
You know, they've gone through those same mistake processes. You know, they cheated on their girlfriend in high school. They felt like a cad. They felt like a schmuck. They didn't feel very good about their choice. So they said, I guess I'm going to try not to do that in the future. And I'm going to do my best at not doing that, because that doesn't make it, it's not aligned with who I am. It doesn't make me feel good. Everybody was talking crap about me. I didn't like it. You know, I hurt a person who I cared about. And so I'm going to try not to repeat that behavior the best I can. And I started learning, because like the 12 steps, like a lot of people who come in and, you know, I work with a lot of, as many people as I can to try to take them through. And I tell them, oh, I could take you through the 12 steps in probably 2 days, like they did with one of the co-founders. I think Dr. Bob was taken through these 12 steps, while half of them while he was still drunk. But it doesn't start working really to build the foundation we talked about until I go through another experience, another hurdle,
Yep.
and I get through it without drinking. I get through it without using drugs. I learn how to cope with it better. I learn how to use the tools that I was giving. I pray, I meditate, I write, I talk to other people. I get wise counsel from other people. I don't put everything out there to everyone, because there's a lot of counsel that I don't consider wise, and I'm not going to take their advice. And I'd rather them not know what my plans are or anything, because I think there is a vibe of you know, this is like whatever my next thing, my next goal is that I'm going through. I don't like to put that out there to naysayers. Oh, you failed in the past, you're going to fail in the future, or whatever. I don't need
Right.
that kind of energy.
And also, not everybody has the same vision as you. They are the people who can't hear the music and see you dancing and think Paul's doing something crazy.
And that touches
So
on, oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, so their feedback is completely invalid to your response. And so I understand not wanting to put that out there.
Collaboration. Well, I'm gonna have to get the other book now and read that, because this book was
I'll send it
wonderful.
to you. I was thinking about that today. I'll send it to you.
Great. That's
But
fantastic.
collaboration, you should check out my TEDx talk if you haven't seen that.
I will check out the TEDx talk. I will do the work. I'm not the most diligent guy, but I will put
You're
links to.
incredibly diligent. Like,
I'm semi-diligent. I know myself, that's why I work the night shift. I get to meditate for 3 hours a night and get paid to do it.
nice.
I'm absorbing about 150 to 250 pages of text per night and getting paid to do it. I know who I am. I know that I don't have much of a filter. So working with the leadership, who I will often, undiplomatically tell exactly what I think of them and their ideas and their plans. And if I worked with them 8 hours a day, I probably wouldn't have a job, because even if I say it if I crystallize my thoughts eloquently and say it in great big words, sycophant is still not very nice. That they don't like to hear that, So I can do it without cursing. I've learned how to do it without imprecating, and but I've already found synergy here with you. I mean, when I wrote the other day, I wrote about losing. I had a weekend job that I got canned. It was not fun to get canned. I knew that job was ending anyway. I knew what I wanted out of that and what I demanded from myself. They did not like very much, and so I knew that was coming to a close. But even coming to a close, and that day you're like, oh, I know people. I can do this. And when I was seeking that to use people, who can I
Yes.
do to make me a rock star and
Yes.
provide me with my life of prestige and suitcases full of cocaine and so forth, it didn't come about. So law of attraction again.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, I already got irons in the fire. I already know exactly what the next plan is. But there was still synergy there, even though and you touched on the collaboration piece. So let's delve into that, since you got a whole book and a TED talk on it, and we can put links and everything up and
Oh, you're so awesome.
shamelessly self-promote Melissa, because I want to promote Melissa because it feels good. So go
I
for it.
appreciate that. Thank you. So the first book, there are components of collaboration, but really the first book is about allowing the universe to lead your dance with life. And it's as you know, part of it showed up in the Orgasmic Entrepreneur, and I only know this in retrospect. When I wrote Transcendence, it was a download from my higher self that I hadn't incorporated yet. Like I literally, I don't know where those words came from, and it wasn't my life experience yet, but every single piece of it came true. Every single piece. And it was not pretty what I wrote about. Like the process of transcendence is essentially a spiritual awakening. And as you likely know, it's messy as fuck and kind of gross at the same time. So I was much more intentional when I wrote The Orgasmic Entrepreneur, because I now have intimate knowledge of how powerful our words are. So I'm like, if I'm going to write something that's going to manifest, it's going to be good. And I literally experienced the manifestation of it before the book was finished being written. And now I'm waiting for the next iteration of that experience. But Transcendence was, I decided to take private dance lessons because I wanted to learn how to be led. I have always been a very fiercely independent woman. And I remember it was actually a client, we went to lunch and he was talking about people that he was dating, and the women were all so like in charge and empowered, and how emasculating that was to him. And I was like, but you know why that happens? The reason why that happens is because women have been put in charge of things that they don't necessarily have to be in charge of, like the household and all of that. You know, as a single mom, I had to be masculine. Like I had to operate in masculine energy just to fucking survive. And so I've been in this survival mode for so long. Yeah, I follow a whole bunch of polarity teachers, and I love the masculine feminine dynamics. The idea of being able to relax in a man's presence and being held and supported and provided for is so far from my own experience that I decided to take dance lessons, because I felt like that was a literal embodiment of that masculine feminine dynamic. And it is like, I recommend anybody, if you're having problems in that respect, go take private dance lessons, but be prepared to be challenged in every essence of your being, because that experience brought up all of my codependency issues, all of them. Like, I remember the dance teacher saying to me, you know, I see you like trying to anticipate what I'm doing, but you're not helpful. Like you're ruining it. Basically, you're ruining it by trying to be helpful. And I spent my whole life trying to be helpful. And then here's this man telling me I'm ruining it by trying to be helpful. And then when I study polarity, it's the same thing, right? Don't be helpful. Like, let the man lead, and don't do all of those things, like all of the giving and all of the stuff. So that was just like, I took my first dance lesson, and afterwards I just started writing and writing and writing. And that's how that book came about. I couldn't not write about it. It was such a profound experience. And then the more that I got into it, the more that I was like, it's really not my instructor who's leading me. It's really not my dance partner who's leading me. It's the universe. And like, can I be pliable enough to dance with the universe? Can I be flexible enough to allow the universe to move me where I'm supposed to go? Or am I going to still control the whole thing?
That is fantastic. That's fantastic. I said it in the review, and I'll say it again. You're probably the best version of a fully empowered feminist that I've ever seen, without being a misandrist. You know, that's a word that's new to me, so it's fumbling across my lips, because no one ever talks about misandry. They talk about
I had
misogyny. And a misandrist is someone who hates men, you know,
yeah,
hates the masculine. And you know, I was talking about you to someone this morning before I came home and went to sleep, and I was just like, you know, fully empowered, victor, not a victim. You know, not going, well, there's a glass ceiling and I just can't do it, and the patriarchy is holding me back. And so no, it was all, you know, Melissa Drake. No, fuck it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to take charge, and I'm going to do what I need to do. So it must have been hard to learn not to lead. But
Oh,
you
it's
know,
impossible.
I think there's you know, there's something that, you know, I mean, you had a lot of co-authors in the book that wrote pieces in the book, and so forth. And I'd be amiss if I didn't talk about what my next part of my vision for what I want to accomplish with this show, and you know, and eventually with a mission to do you know, to bring mentorship into at-risk populations, you
Love
know,
that.
especially at you know, and you start getting to that adolescent age and preteen and stuff. And you know, with me, I was starting to slack off in school. My self-esteem was going down. There was dysfunction in the house, and I don't know any houses that don't have dysfunction, so I'm not throwing my family under the bus.
Right.
It's just they taught me what they could teach me, and they just didn't know what they didn't know. And you know, and I found that mentorship from people who have been there and had to go through it and have done that and have recovery capital, wellness capital, and can say, yeah, I went down that path. This is where it led me. You get a lot more. You get a lot more credence from the people you're talking. I'm not trying to scare you straight.
Right.
You're 14 years old. You think you can't die. I can't scare you straight, but I can tell you you're going down a bad path. I went down. This is what happened to me when I went down it. And the studies I've read and the experience I've lived has told me that humble mentorship of even an hour or two a month with a person that is starting to go veer off the path of wellness can be instrumental in keeping them on the straight and narrow, and therefore, hopefully preventing a lot of addiction from coming to be, rather than dealing with it after it's already
Right.
destroying someone's life, because the numbers are abysmally low of people trying. I'm selling them pain. I'm selling them pain. And I can sell ice to Eskimos, Inuits. I'm sorry, my wrong
Mhm.
nomenclature. But I am selling I'm selling a process that's going to be very painful for quite a while as
Right.
you're learning to put it into effect. So, let's talk about some of your mentors as we finish up.
I have had a ton of mentors. It started first with therapy. So I had the same psychiatrist for like 20 years, and when he retired, I thought I was going to die. I was so sad. Um, but therapy just kept me in the same loop. And actually, when he retired, um, I specifically asked for a therapist who would call me on my bullshit. I'm like, I've been coming to therapy for 20 years. I'm no better today than I was when I started. In fact, I would go in there and I'd tell him, I know I need to do this. And there was no like accountability or anything along those lines. So I asked for a therapist who would tell me straight and really challenge me. And that was my first kind of opening to recovery. And she delivered. Like, her name was Kim, and she was fantastic. She was a really good therapist to me. And she wasn't just focused on me, but she gave me some insight into her life and mentorship from that way. Like, I've been through this, and this is how it happened for me. I had lost both my parents at that point, was feeling very alone, and we connected personally in a way that I had never connected with a therapist before, because therapists are like, I'm not going to share my life, and she opened up a little bit, and it was really beautiful. Um, and then from there, I connected with the coaching industry, and I hired. This is all. I'm not going to get into this whole thing, but like at that point, that's when sexuality opened up for me. So I hired a sexologist, and I went down that path and opened up that whole can of worms in a really glorious way. And from there, it's just like it's always been a coach of some kind. I find accountability ridiculously helpful. Left to my own devices, you know, I like to eat ice cream. I don't do like, I have been completely med free. I went off of and I used to take almost 1,000 pills a month. So this is a big deal. Like, um, I went off all of my antidepressants in 2016, and then I had like hormone replacement therapy and stuff that I was off in 2018. I used to take 120 Vicodin a month. I mean, we're talking like, anyway. So like, med free. Now it's the spirituality, the health, and natural. Like, I would much rather have cannabis than a pill. Like, I don't ever want to take a pill again. So just really learning about all of the tools that are readily available that don't require chemicals. I have really good friends, support system. I have amazing friends that I met online who are not just not just virtual connections, but people I actually spend time with and take vacations with and enjoy being in their presence. But I always have kind of probably honestly too many people. That was one thing I learned in writing the book, is that I had been hiring all of these healers and coaches and people who I thought were more advanced in some way. And one of my former coaches said to me, actually Stacey Herrera, who was the person who wrote the chapter on sex and creativity in the book, she said to me, all these people that you're paying, you're just paying yourself because you know the answers. And I just wasn't trusting them. And so here I was outsourcing my power to other people. And really it's about trusting my own intuition, my own knowing, my own inner guidance. So I really appreciate the coaches and the teachers who lead me back to that, rather than give me their blueprints of this is the way that it has to be. It's more like, no, Melissa, you need to tune in and do what your heart says, not what I'm going to tell you.
That's fantastic. I've had a lot of similar experiences. I'd say the biggest thing that a mentor can be is humble. You know, is have the humility. If you know, and I've thought of this a few different ways. Bruce Lee's teacher was not Bruce Lee. He taught him all he could, and Bruce Lee took it from there. Mozart's teacher was not Mozart, but he taught him what he could, and Mozart took it from there and had to bring something extra into it. And you know, sometimes one of my mentors gets jealous of my progress based on everything he was able to teach me. You know, so now he'll have problems, and we're no longer Jedi and Padawan as we were in the beginning. You know, now we are. You know, now we are both Jedi, and and we can cross swords. Yeah, I no, we're not going to go there. But you know, so he'll come to me with things too, and sometimes I just, you know, I got the tools to solve problems, and sometimes I just want to piss and moan for a while and gripe in his ear, tell him, look, I know how I'm going to solve this. I'm going to work it out. I'm going to meditate. I'm going to pray and everything. But for the next 10 minutes, I just want to tell you about my life's woes and just vomit that out of me and so forth. And so now we have more of a peer relationship where we go back and forth. And I like that it's developed that way. And he's humble enough and authentic enough to know what he doesn't know. And so, and it's like, okay, well, that's a good question. I don't have an answer for that. We're gonna have to pray about it. We're gonna have to look at it. We're gonna have to meditate on it and maybe seek some outside guidance and so forth. But this has been fantastic. I spent, hopefully the video comes out pretty good, because I did spend a solid 20 minutes of tutorials on YouTube learning how to do
I have a video guy.
I know you said that, and I might use them. I don't think we've touched any areas that are taboo, so that's good, and I'll send you a copy. But this has been riveting. It's been enchanting. It's been fantastic, and I liked doing it that we had never had a live conversation prior to this. Because hopefully they'll watch the video and go, wow, look at the chemistry. And so forth. So it's been great having you, and
been a fantastic host.
Thank you so much. I do have a gift coming after we sign off. And I told my wife, I said, hi, when I do the show, I would like a cabinet behind me with different levels of prizes, you know, guest gifts, you know. So if the person really stinks, I can say, hey, take something from level 1. That's what you go. Your story has grown tiresome. This is the time on Sprockets Van Vidance. But you know, I would say you're getting something from the top tier Melissa, you're getting something from the top tier.
I love it.
No,
Thank you.
so there
It's
you go.
completely unnecessary
I
and very
know,
welcome.
I
So
know, but don't deprive me of my
I
happiness.
will, I will not.
Language
I
of
will.
love is giving gifts, and so
Oh,
I
I love it.
love to do it, and it makes me happy, and there's no strings ever attached to my gifts.
Beautiful.
And it's been wonderful, and thank you anyone who decides to subscribe to this and listen to our talk. So thank you everyone. I'll find out how to put links to everything underneath. I always hear people on YouTube saying there's a link in the thing.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
please, anyone comment, because I get so much out of feedback and what other people have to say. And even if you don't like it, I mean, my best teachers now are assholes, I mean, because
Ah, yes.
you have to look at where I'm lacking. If they can ruffle my feathers, then it's something I need to look at. So,
Same.
so
Yep.
yeah, if you just got asshole comments, of course I'll probably delete those.
I wrote a post last year about the best teachers being assholes. So I'm 100% with you.
All right, Melissa, I'm going to end the recording. Thank you so much. This has been fantastic.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Agreed.
Now,
Appreciate you.
you too.
Bye.
Bye-bye.